Eat, sleep, bet, repeat. That's how we get down on the opening line here at EliteSportsBetting.com. I'll be your host, Benny Ricciardi, and today we're going to go over a little bit of college football action. Getting down towards the end of the season here for college football. So we got a couple good games. We got a lot of games that are going to have some meaning. A couple teams that need to make sure they keep winning to either keep their bowl hopes alive or to get into the bowls that they want to get into. So as always, I brought in my experts here. I got my boy, Real Frank Brank over here, and my man, Golf Man Paulie. So we'll start with you, Frank. What's going on today, bro?
How's it going, man? Big week, huh? I mean, it's kind of wait and see to see. Georgia, I think, is in the driver's seat. They win, they're in. They lose, they're out. And then it really comes down to two other games, I think, with Utah and Oklahoma. Now, all of them can lose and kind of really throw a wrench into a lot of stuff. But I think if LSU wins like we would expect them to win, and Utah wins, I think they should be in. I'd like to see Utah in. Different style of team than the other teams, like mediocre offense, really elite front seven. Granted, they're going to probably draw LSU if they do get in. I'm assuming LSU will be one. It's kind of the committee's done this before where they've jumped a team they have Oklahoma 6, Utah 5, but they do this expecting Georgia. They're sending a message to Georgia saying you're going to be in if you win. You're already number 4. I think it was the first year of the playoff they had TCU in, and TCU won the conference. And I think it was back when they didn't have a conference championship game or something like that. But then they jumped them for Ohio State, I think. I think that was the year they won with Cardale. So it'll be interesting to see if Utah skates by or wins in any way if they don't jump them with Oklahoma. It's, a lot of the prediction stuff that I've seen from other sites, where they do the playoff probabilities, keep showing Oklahoma having better odds than Utah, which maybe it's just because they have a little bigger spread this week. But I don't know. Baylor may be a little bit better win than Oregon at this point, considering Baylor's going up and Oregon's kind of falling apart. I don't know. It seems like Utah wins, LSU wins, and I think Utah should get in. But the committee's done this before.
Paulie, I saw you nodding your head while Frank was talking. How are you looking at the way that this will probably play out for the the top 4 national championship?
Yeah, I would be really surprised if Utah does not get in as the 4th team, assuming that Georgia loses to LSU. And the one thing I have to consider is that, this isn't just all numbers based like it used to be before the BCS formula, right? This is actually there's human interaction in terms of decision making, and there's a little bit of the eye test put in there, and the committee knows that Oklahoma, even though they only have 1 loss, has had a couple close calls over the last month where they very easily could have lost games against some opponents that weren't necessarily that good. Whereas Utah's only loss came in kind of a fluky game where they also had a bunch of injuries.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, when you have Condoleezza Rice in there running the running the selection committee and having a say in this, you never know what's going to happen, going on here. But we actually have a lot of games this weekend to go through, and I know you guys both run your numbers early in the week. So, Frank, we'll start with you. Tell me what is popping off on your your spreadsheet on things that you think the Vegas got wrong, where we could make some money and find a little bit of value here this week.
Yeah, so I played under 51 in the Utah game when it opened up, but it's already gone. It's gone down to 47. It's 4 points down to 47.5.
Okay.
That's about what I have it at. 47.7 is what I made it. That was probably my biggest bet. If you can stomach it, my next biggest one, beginning of the week, was FAU under. UAB I have them 95th offensively. In offensive efficiency. Not that FAU is some great team, but the few games that UAB did play decent teams, FAU's pretty average, from a countrywide perspective. UAB's struggling to get to 20 points. I mean, a handful of games they've scored 7 3 points. So I like the under there. It's only
what's the number on? Oh, that's what I was going to ask.
It's only 50, which is nothing in college, but I've got it at 46.5.
Okay.
So that was my biggest edge remaining. But and not that I like to go against big line moves, but I've got another. 2 weeks ago we played Penn State, Ohio State under in the numbers throughout the week as it kept going up. I didn't have a play at open. I think it opened at like 53 or 54. It's been bet up to 57, something like 4 to 5 points. I now like the under in that game, similar to the Penn State game, where I think Ohio State can blow out anybody. Wisconsin's playing better offensively throughout the year. They kind of struggled there in the middle of the season with some weird losses, but Ohio State can rely on their front seven. They're probably gonna get a little bit of a lead. I see that game similar as Penn State playing out, where it's almost the same point total now, where Ohio State's gonna get a lead, and their playoff hopes are kind of riding, and they can kind of just grind it out, I think, at the end.
All right. So we got nothing really on the on the lines here. You got a lot more on the totals here this week, right?
Yeah, I made 2 side plays. I don't want to give away the whole boat, but there's some numbers out there in the other big games that are on the right side of like we talked about before, 3, 7, 10.5. Even some games at 15.5 now, 16, where I think there's some value. These games that these teams tend to take less chances in these games, right? Like we know that they're probably going to play pretty close. Georgia, LSU, for example, LSU's played a handful of really good teams this year, but they played them close. They played towards the end. They played Florida close. They played Auburn close. They played Alabama close. This Georgia team is arguably better than all the teams they've played this year at the times that they played them. So I would say that that game, if you can get on the right side of a couple numbers here, I think that's the play this week.
Yeah, so that's what we like to do here. We want to try to give you a first look early in the week with a lot of these games being a couple days away. Remember, if you want to get all the picks that Frank and Paulie are throwing into the package, as well as the rest of our experts, make sure you guys get over to elitesportsbetting.com. I'm pretty sure, I know it's still going on today, but I don't know how much longer it's going to last. The Cyber Monday sale is still alive at this moment because a friend of mine actually signed up for it this morning and was like, hey, can I still use that Black 30 promo code? And I said, yeah, go ahead and try it. And he said that it worked. So make sure you get over there. Promo code Black 30. You get 30% off any of our packages, from the sports betting side at elitesportsbetting.com to the fantasy side at elitefantasy.com, even over to the Fantasy Guru side if you do, a lot of season-long stuff. So make sure you guys get over there and get in now. You're not going to get a better deal than this, 30% off. I mean, taking money out of Tommy G's, drinking funds right now, but that's the way it is. So, Paulie, how about you? What's sticking out with the numbers that you ran today versus what the Vegas lines are showing us? Where can we find some value in college football this week?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of small values left out there. The 2 biggest values we bet actually about a week ago. Believe it or not, we actually had Utah to win the Pac-12 at -125 a week ago, and now that's up to, I think, -250. And we also had LSU look-ahead line of -2.5 over Georgia, and that's sitting at 7 right now. So if you're part of the package here, you would have had those locked in and sitting pretty on those. So really not touching those games because of that. The 2 biggest edges I still see left of the market are actually Florida Atlantic, which is up to -7.5 right now against UAB. Okay. So Florida Atlantic and UAB are both 9-3 in the year. So you think they're going to be about equal teams, right? But FAU lost the first 2 games of the year to Ohio State and UCF. Since then, they've lost 1 game, and all 9 wins that they have been by double digits.
Okay.
And so now they get to play at home against a UAB team, which has kind of, I don't want to say flukily gotten to 9-3, but they haven't necessarily had a lot of blowout wins. They've won against a lot of inferior competition. They barely beat North Texas last week, which has been struggling all year. The week before that, they barely beat Louisiana Tech, who was missing their top quarterback and top wide receiver. So I think if we can get FAU anywhere under 9, I think would be a buy in this situation.
All right, so I know Frank was talking about the over-under in that game, and you're talking about the line in there. So Florida Atlantic is going to be one that is going to be pretty important to us in the betting package this week. So hopefully they go out and play a good game. Hopefully they win by 9, but don't score too many points that it pushes us to the over. And then this way we cash everything and we get all the money here. You said you had 2. Was there another one you wanted?
Yeah, there's one other one that just doesn't really make sense with the current line in the market, and that's Memphis over Cincinnati. So these teams actually played last week. So similar setup, but Memphis closed as a 13-point favorite last week, and they're currently sitting out there minus 9.5 in the market. So that seems a little bit cheap to me, especially considering that Memphis kind of has to put a good showing here if they want to be ahead of Boise to be the top non-Power 5 school in terms of bowl eligibility.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, listen, we got some good lines that we can look at here this week. There's a little bit of value there. That's why we bring the guys on so they can get you your first look early in the week so you guys have a chance to get the money down. Paulie was talking about some of the lines he put in last week and how the lines already moved in their favor. Frank was talking about the one line that already moved down from 51 to 47. This is why we want to do this early in the week. We try to get these numbers out to you as soon as these guys run their models and get everything going, because other people are running models and doing these things too. And believe me, you'd much rather have, if you're betting an over, you'd much rather take it at 51 than when it comes down to 47. If you can hop on one of these spreads on -2 and it goes up to -7, there's a lot of different ways that we can get some value there. And closing line value is a good way to be on the right side of, profitability in the long term here. So if I said to you, you got, life or death, one bet to make to save your life this week, which one are you going with, Frank?
Well, it would have been my Utah bet, but now it's a toss-up for me between Georgia and that FAU under. If you can get the 7.5 in the Georgia game, I'm probably going to take. That would be my one remaining bet left there. There's been some resistance, but again, this early in the week, sometimes some guys like to take some of their money for the week and put it in. And like Paulie said with that Memphis game, that could be a situation. It opened at 10, 9.5, 10. It's gone down to 8.5 in some spots. Maybe some people knowing what happened last week or in the previous game, like you said, they were favored by 13. I have them by 12 this week. You can see sometimes that some money will, guys trying to get better numbers, maybe early in the week will fake it. And then on Saturday morning, all that money comes back in on the other side, or, in our case, maybe Friday or Saturday. So my one bet, I guess, would be Georgia. If you can get on the right side of that, it looks like it's 7.5 in most spots. That would be my one remaining bet that I would really take, I think.
All right. So how about you, Paulie? Gun to your head, one bet to win. Which one you taking?
Yeah, it would be Florida Atlantic at -7.5 out there. There might be 7 out in a few spots. We got 7, I think, yesterday, I believe. But even at 7.5, that would be a buy.
Yeah, and if you guys have the ability to, again, I live in New Jersey, and now that we have all these sports books coming online, you would be shocked at how much different, the lines you're getting offered on some of these things are. And one thing I wanted to throw out there, because I had a couple people say something to me last week or during the week based on some of the lines that we've talked about here in the past week or two. Make sure you're looking at what the juice you're paying on some of these is, because sometimes you'll see, oh man, I'm able to get 6. You guys said anything under 7 is a great bet.
Yeah.
But if you have to lay -130 to get that 6, it's not really that great of a bet. I mean, yeah, you're getting a good number, but you're giving up a lot on what you're going to be getting back on that. So make sure you take a look at that as well. It's very easy. One of the things I always do, if you're wondering, how much you're really giving up, before you even place the bet, when you put in a 2 risk amount and it tells you what you're going to win, just put in 100, because then okay, we're getting back 60% on the dollar or 70% on the dollar, or whatever it winds up being, because it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a big difference in the return that you get from -110 when you go up to a -125 or a -130. And you got to think about it over the long term. If you're making bets every week for 15, 20, 30 weeks, you want to be able to get your money in the best spots. So sometimes the number looks good, but sometimes it's not worth it really for you to take that number if you have to give up a lot of what you could be getting in your profits there.
And if you look at the FAU game there, like Paulie's saying, I'm seeing 7 at BetOnline, -130, like you said. So
yeah,
the number matters more in football than other sports because of the scoring system. But it so rarely falls on the numbers. So in situations like 7 minus 130, there's a good chance you're better off selling back that half point and playing it at 7.5 at the lower vig. Just because the odds of it falling on 7 are higher than, like, say, basketball, but they're still not. The number doesn't come into play that often, right?
Yeah. The key numbers in football are definitely numbers that come out more often than they do in, like, a basketball or a baseball per se. But again, like you said, you got to also realize that there's a value proposition with it as well. It's not just a number that you're throwing out there.
Right.
All right. Anything else you guys want to add before we sign off here?
No.
Good.
Nope.
All right. So this is Benny Ricciardi for Frank, for Paulie, signing off for EliteSportsBetting.com on the opening line.